Honorable Madam Speaker, Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Leader of Opposition, Honorable Leader of NFP, and members of the House. Madam Speaker, I rise to inform the Honorable members about the progress of climate change education in schools. Madam Speaker, as members may or may not know, climate change is being addressed in the national curriculum as education for sustainable development. Madam Speaker, in our region, the simple truth is this: climate change is a reality. 2 years ago, our neighbors in Vanuatu have had to keep their schools closed for extended periods of time in the aftermath of Cyclone Perm, leaving 14,000 students without access to education for months. Madam Speaker, we in Fiji know all too well the horror of recent cyclones, with the threat of tropical cyclone Winston still fresh in our minds. We need to start thinking on how we can protect our communities and families, and especially our children. Earlier this month, while opening a new classroom block at Wainikili District School in Taveuni, Honorable Prime Minister Honorable Mahendra Reddy reminded everyone to take initiative when they are being threatened by climate change. We urged that all Fijians needed to modify their perceptions to that of a person susceptible to climate change. Madam Speaker, in this brief, valuable moment, I wish to help the honourable members realize the importance of acting now to ensure that all our children and youth across the nation to act on knowledge, comprehension and application of our ever-improving climate change curriculum. We in the Ministry of Education, Learning and Arts do this day in and day out across our 942 ECE centres, 907 primary and secondary schools with 225 plus students. Since 2015, we had prioritized this curriculum perspective not only to our most vulnerable schools, but across the nation, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Fiji has been successful in its bid to chair the next United Nations climate change meeting, the Conference of Parties 23, with our Honourable Prime Minister heading this campaign. It is imperative that our education system appropriately reflects and accords the due importance of climate change throughout the national curriculum, so that while our Prime Minister leads the discourse at the international level, back home we have one of the best curriculum to train and upskill our children. Madam Speaker, let me take a moment to explain the importance of education for sustainable development curriculum perspective to our children's future. We all want to better prepare our nation's children and youth to respond to the impacts and effects of climate change. There are already visible environmental changes taking place in our communities and across our nation. You are all aware of the Vunidangoloa village relocation in the Kondrove Vanuatu in 2014, an express warning by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that not only are sea level expected to rise between 28 to 61 centimeters by 2100, but there will be an increase in the frequency and intensities of tropical storms and cyclones. We are already seeing evidences of this weather change, such as flooding, coastal erosion and drought. And therefore, Madam Speaker, we are striving to ensure that our students are the most informed generation in Fiji's history on the subject of climate change and all its aspects. We are not leaving it to chance and luck to navigate our nation into unknown future. We will raise students who are knowledgeable about this education for sustainable development curriculum perspective and will make informed decisions, not only at local and national level, but as individuals about adapting or mitigating climate change situations globally. Madam Speaker, we are reforming our education perspective that is moving away from seeing sustainability as just one of many curriculum perspectives. Instead, we are advancing curriculum to integrate sustainability across all curriculum perspectives and indeed in the formal curriculum. The three ways in integrating sustainability are as follows. Firstly, education ensures continuity of our culture and traditions, guaranteeing their transfer from one generation to another. Across the globe, indigenous communities have used their knowledge about their natural surroundings to adjust to different changes of weather patterns. In the Pacific, our natural resources, terrestrial and aquatic, still play a significant role in sustaining livelihoods. In villages, the older generations are knowledgeable about what crops to plant, on which month or for what reason, or what types of fish and invertebrates are abundant at a certain month or during a certain lunar phase. It is not different in Fiji. Thus, Madam Speaker, traditional knowledge continues to play an important role in our societies, and increasingly this knowledge is being recognized as a critical component in community-based climate change adoption planning. We are as such inculcating this knowledge in the new curriculum. Secondly, there's an increasing probability that with the dynamic environmental changes we currently encounter, the knowledge, comprehension and application skills we teach today need continually updating, adding to and appraising. Madam Speaker, I am mandated by the national curriculum to further the goal that our children have the right skills and competencies to take on challenges and opportunities of the 21st century, especially through the curriculum perspectives, which are cross-cutting themes that add to the quality of education that we provide for children from early childhood to year 18. There are 8 curriculum perspectives which act collaboratively to bring cohesion across the formal subjects. These include education for 1. Citizenship, literacy, numeracy, financial inclusion, special and inclusive education, spiritual and values education, careers, and 8. Lastly, but central to the above 7 curriculum perspective is education for sustainable development. Thirdly, Madam Speaker, we are implementing programs in schools which affect the greater scope of environmental protection and climate change. School initiatives such as 3 R's or 4 R's, that is, recycling, reusing, reducing or recovering, recreating, or responding or rehabilitating, school-based compost initiative, no burning programs, save energy programs, renewable energy competitions, go green programs, lunch box instead of lunch wrapper initiatives, Arbor Day, walk to school initiative, etc. have been highly successful. Madam Speaker, it is by no coincidence that education for sustainable development is central to other perspectives. Since the United Nations highlighted and adopted the resolution to establish 2005 to 2014 as the decade of education for sustainable development, the Minister of Education, Heritage and Arts have continued to run with this theme, and rightly so, Madam Speaker, especially now that Fiji is the signatory for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The Education for Sustainable Development perspective projects 3 key pillars to sustainability: economy, society, and environment. And these are covered in the various approaches advocated in the national curriculum framework, linking all the perspectives. Madam Speaker, today I am focusing on our environmental pillar of education, which is climate change is mandated, Madam Speaker, I can list many of our ministry's past climate awareness activities, but the time is valuable. I want to focus on how we may cooperate in a whole of government approach to make our nation's youth sustainable leaders. But first, Madam Speaker, let me go more into the foundational work our youth have received to date. This way the members may realize the qualifications of our soon-to-be employed youth. Let us review our climate change curriculum works today. Currently, our education curriculum integrates climate change in 2 key methods, that is, progressive education and cross-cutting sustainable development education. What I mean by progressive is curriculum starts from the youngest age to introduce the basics, for example, knowledge and activities about weather and climate change. Then as students move to later primary, they will learn the relationship between extreme weather events versus historical climate patterns. Upon entering secondary school, students progress with their knowledge of climate change to understand the important distinction between natural greenhouse effect versus our currently enhanced man-made greenhouse effect. Madam Speaker, by the time our students reach upper secondary, they will understand the scientific facts around climate change. Additionally, upper secondary school students will learn how to be resilient to climate change effects through mitigation, adaptation curriculum, for example, performing mitigating activities around our students' carbon footprint, as well as mapping his or her own adaptation as a responsible citizen. Quickly, Madam Speaker, taking you through from ECE to Year 1, basic environmental friendly practices in the science syllabus. From Year 3, inculcate respect for plants and animals in local environment, highlighting importance and ways of conserving energy. Year 4, important relationships between living things and the environment. Year 5, introducing specific environmental ecosystems like forests, mangroves, grassland, etc. to our children. Year 7, introducing the importance of biodiversity and sustaining an ecosystem. Year 8, explaining effects of loss of biodiversity. 9 and 10, changes in ecosystem and human activities. 11, impacts on enhanced greenhouse effects. 12, contemporary environmental issues. And 13, carbon footprint, mitigation and adoption, local, regional, global level, etc. Madam Speaker. So this is how we have covered in the science curriculum. Similarly, we also have sustainable education and climate change covered in the social science syllabi, Madam Speaker, from years 3 to 13. Madam Speaker, let me now move on to a cross-cutting approach. By this I mean we incorporate education for sustainable development into all of our other curriculum perspectives. We do this because all subjects must play a very proactive role in mitigating and adaptation. We do climate change curriculum in line with mandate of education for sustainable development. Without the foresight of our national curriculum, our students would not be learning about climate change. This is how we are able to integrate climate change into all key aspects. Madam Speaker, let us now move on to how our climate change professional development has improved teachers' skills in 2016. I will address professional development of all our teachers in 3 methods. First, geographically based workshops. 2, teacher resource kits. And 3, universal self-education. Madam Speaker, regarding our first method, geographically based workshops, in 2016, the Ministry of Education leveraged our existing Memorandum of Understanding with SPC, which includes support of integration of climate change in school curriculum and development of resources on climate change to increase workshops on climate change education. Together, we have moved quickly to introduce train-the-trainers workshop across country on climate change education. Those qualified teachers then return to upskill their fellow teachers in their respective schools. To date, under this first partnership with funding from SPC, 517 primary teachers and 150 teachers in the FNU have been trained through climate change adoption education workshop. So, Madam Speaker, existing teachers, already 517 teachers from these different schools have undergone a specialized workshop funded by SPC. Madam Speaker, another 55 primary school teachers have been trained through similar workshops funded through a second partnership with UNESCO and Malaysia Funds in Trust, bringing our total of climate change education trained teachers for 2016 to 572. Madam Speaker, in this year, 2017, we are continuing to expand our reach and cover all the remaining primary schools and begin with secondary level teachers through geographical based workshops. So thereafter, we anticipate that all teachers will then be supported to teach climate change with additional resources. So, Madam Speaker, this is the detail in terms of how we have upskill our teachers. In addition to this, Madam Speaker, we have also provided resource kits on climate change to our teachers. These kits have already been distributed to 631 schools, Madam Speaker, out of the 900 schools. The climate change information kits were developed in collaboration with the SPC and ZTZ and several international organizations. Importantly, these resources reflect the unified knowledge of the world's key stakeholders through SPC and ZTZ. Madam Speaker, the dedication of the Ministry of Education towards climate change education is long-standing and of international repute. The Ministry has committed printing and disseminating these kits to schools through our climate change and trained teachers. It should be noted that these kits function as a supplemental resource to the textbooks with existing climate change content. Madam Speaker, we have also included questions in the examinations to test out our children's climate change knowledge, Madam Speaker. For example, the biology exam paper, year 12 in 2015, 11% of the exam addressed issues of sustainability. Year 13, 15% of the examination addressed issues of sustainability in year 12 in 2015. Gradually, exams across various subjects are increasing the climate change weighting in assessment. A second conclusion that may be drawn, Madam Speaker, is that more subjects are tackling climate change through assessment, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have details of the other subjects, for example, chemistry, geography, basic science, on how these subjects reflected climate change questions and testing. So in conclusion, Madam Speaker, Ministry of Education is taking fundamental steps to address progressive integration of sustainability in our nation's curriculum and assessment. Madam Speaker, while our Honourable Prime Minister is leading the charge on collective action against climate change at the global level, we all have to do at our own level, demonstrate that Fiji is on top of this agenda at the national level, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, what I have presented to you today reveals our education agenda on climate change. Madam Speaker, if we want to have a responsible seat at the global table, then our students must be prepared to speak with wisdom that comes from deep experimental understanding. Our shared future faces change. What makes the great change? Climate change. Unprecedented is its vast disparity on what we have taught versus what we must teach. Madam Speaker, we owe it to our children's future, otherwise inaction will bury us. Our Honourable Prime Minister has paved the way for not only Fiji, but for the entire Pacific region and the other small island states to have a more strong say on climate change at the global level. His inspirational leadership is acknowledged regionally with the highly successful deliberations last week at the conference. It is our duty now to support his cause by preparing our children for this challenge via our education system with the vigour and robustness that it deserves. We seek support of all stakeholders in this endeavour. Madam Speaker, thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Members. I seek your indulgence to hear out the two responses from the opposition before we break for lunch. Do we have any opposition? There being none, thank you. I now give the floor to the Honourable Leader of Opposition or her designate to speak in response. Honourable Member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, I would like to thank the Honourable Minister for the statement on climate change education for sustainable development. And Madam Speaker, I fully agree that students as well as citizens of Fiji need to be fully aware of the effects of climate change on their lives. And it's necessary if something happens. And I applaud the Honourable Minister for this initiative. I also understand, Madam Speaker, that students in schools are taught science subjects that inform them about the consequences of their actions to the environment, and if they are not careful or cautious. However, Madam Speaker, making changes to the school curriculum needs proper consultation to all stakeholders so they will understand the reasons behind the change and also come up with the contributions. I wonder whether the Honourable Minister for Education has consulted with the Fiji Teachers Confederation, FTA and FTU, universities, NGOs, Principals Association, Primary, Head Teachers Association, School Management, parents, and also Education Forum. An Education Summit, Madam Speaker, as the Minister promised in his maiden speech, will be the best forum to address all this. Madam Speaker, what I'm trying to say here is that more heads together will come up with a broader and clearer vision on this issue. Secondly, our heads are much better than what they are. Secondly, Madam Speaker, by bringing stakeholders on board for consultation and discussion will enable them to take ownership of the initiative, and they will ensure that it is carried out. Therefore, I urge the Honourable Minister, Madam Speaker, to widely discuss the changes needed in the curriculum with education stakeholders, especially in the integration of climate change, education for sustainable development, before this change is fully implemented. It is a valuable topic, Madam Speaker, and should not be rushed, and rather than being reactive, rather than being proactive. Madam Speaker, band-aid solutions such as this will not last long, as it does not have the base to make it last. From another angle, Madam Speaker, I believe students should be taught more on the importance of conservation and sustainable development in order to protect our environment. Students, just like any other ordinary citizen, Madam Speaker, must fully understand the importance of looking after the environment and seriously take action to protect it. They need to be fully aware, Madam Speaker, that when they are more responsible in protecting the environment, they are also protecting themselves by reducing the effects on the climate. And we need to be more preventive, Madam Speaker. This, Madam Speaker, I believe is a more proactive approach rather than being reactive. Prevention, Madam Speaker, is better than cure. And to conclude, Madam Speaker, I advise the Honourable Minister for Education that for the changes he wishes to make, he must consult all education stakeholders for the betterment of education in this country, because a collective view is better than rather boasting about his own initiative, which will not last long and will not be fully accepted by the people concerned. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Now call upon the Leader of NFP or his designate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the Honourable Minister for his statement. I think the whole issue of climate change is important, is understood. The Minister, Madam Speaker, made reference to COP23, and I just wanted to make some comments on that as well. In the last session of the Parliament, the Prime Minister quite earnestly suggested that NFP was not in support of Fiji's presidency of COP23. In fact, quite the contrary, we support both the Prime Minister and Fiji and his leadership in taking COP23. I think it is indeed an honor for Fiji and the Prime Minister to do so. However, Madam Speaker, we did say several things about the preparation of COP23 and what needs to be done. COP23, Madam Speaker, is not just about making the world hear this time. It is actually going to be about making the world understand and adhere to the Paris Agreement. So I think Fiji's leadership as a member of SIDS, it would be very, very important that we work together, and the opposition's offer of bipartisan approach in taking this matter to the world is still on the table. Let me come back to the issue of curriculum. Madam Speaker, I think it is important. We don't dispute the fact that we need to review the curriculum, and I agree with the Minister that we need to include this in the curriculum, but I also agree with our colleague here. I think he, from the opposition, Honourable Reddy, made some pertinent points, and indeed I have always called this issue with the Minister, and I said curriculum, Madam Speaker, is very important. I mean, you can have the facilities, you can have the teachers, but if the curriculum is not aligned to the objectives of what we are trying to achieve as a country, as an education system, and the quality that we're going to produce out of that curriculum in terms of the outcome, whether it be the results, whether it be the competency of students who go into tertiary institutions, all this, Madam Speaker, will emanate from the way in which the curriculum is devised. And writing curriculum, Madam Speaker, as an educationist, I know, it is not a very simple matter. It is not something that you can bring in, experts from here and there and put out issues that students will try and understand. And I also don't agree that putting the climate change or environment agenda in the curriculum in the way that you can deal with as a separate issue is not going to be helpful, because climate change, Madam Speaker, is an interdisciplinary issue. I mean, when you talk about climate change, you talk about the science of climate change. The science of climate change is kind of established already. But we have other issues. We have to look at the social issues, we have to look at the political issues, we have to look at many other issues within the area of climate change, and the impact of climate change goes beyond or cuts across many sectors of our society, of our economy. And that is why I think it is important, and I would urge the Minister to use this opportunity, because we're trying to introduce new things, Madam Speaker. And as I said to him earlier, that there's been a lot of time lapse and a lot of changes made in the last 10 years. Maybe it's time to consolidate all that, appoint a education commission or a review committee to look at the whole curriculum and see how we can bring all these things together in a way that will help us achieve the outcome that we intend. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable members, we will now break for lunch.